telegraph pole. And I mean, it's not so much of a different technique from tossing a chair to tossing a cable, to tossing a cable. So if Stevie wants to turn his hand at that, sure there'll be plenty of Scottish Microsoft fans will be waiting to turn up and cheer him on and his wee kilt and his bald head. So
the sad thing is, I mean, whatever happens to him, I don't think he's going to be lacking in money when he retires from or leaves Microsoft. And this is a sad thing. You know, there's been so many projects that we've seen that have died. Things like the Kin, where you had the victims of that were innocent buyers who bought into the PR of Microsoft, and the advocacy of the Kin, which came from, I believe, Microsoft sources, saying that the Kin was great, it was going to do everything that you wanted it to do. It was a social phone, and there was those adverts with fun, trendy young teenagers. Of course, it all ended in tears, as is usually the way, and people were left with a piece of hardware that they had no real use for.
I think with Microsoft, one of the things that's always held or went against Ballmer, I mean, despite his own deficiencies, is the thing is Microsoft. I mean, love them or hate them, they were very successful under Bill Gates. Money-wise, I mean, there's a lot of corruption and all that as well, but money-wise for the shareholders and for the influence they had on all different markets, they were very successful. And then everything basically since Ballmer took over. The last successful products they had was stuff when Bill Gates was in charge. Everything that's been created in Ballmer's watch has bombed, and they see that. I mean, they're thinking, right, we used to be a huge company. What's happening? Because it's not one or two unlucky things. It's a whole succession of things, one after the other, and we're just losing left, right, and centre.
I mean, I still find it incredible. We're now seeing leaked screenshots of Windows 8 and MVPs, and advocates are all talking about Windows 8, about how it's going to be so great, etc. And they've still got a massive user base which refused to come off XP. And now we've had Vista and 7 in between that. And now they're talking about 8. And you just wonder, what is it going to take to get people to move? And in the meantime, when people aren't moving to these new fancy badges that they put onto updates, in inverted commas, of the Windows platform, how they're going to sustain themselves on what I see as an ailing market. If people are wanting to hang on to their computers for longer, if people are not wanting to upgrade their operating systems, even if they don't move to Linux, if they stay with Windows, Microsoft's making no more money if somebody stays with XP than they do if somebody comes over to Ubuntu or something like that. So it'd be very interesting, I think, especially to see what 8 actually turns out to be. Looking at the screenshots, it can't give much away because
I've seen those screenshots as well, and it's all ribbon. Everything's done with ribbons now, and apparently in Windows 8. But the thing is, I mean, this is what annoys me is one of the things that Microsoft and their advocates keep touting about reasons to stick with Windows, stick with Microsoft Office, is low retraining costs. If you go with Linux, oh my God, everything's different. You're going to have to completely relearn everything and take all your staff off for weeks at a time and send them away on expensive training courses, and there'll be lots of downtime as they have to get used to new systems and whatever. And it's like, what planet are you on? You'd introduced the ribbon into the Office 2007, and even existing Windows Office users and Microsoft Office users were going, what the hell's this ribbon thing? I'm lost. So they had to retrain them for that anyway. And of course, OpenOffice and LibreOffice stuck with a traditional layout, and then they go to this hellish-looking thing called Windows Explorer, now with all the ribbon stuff, and it's like, oh my God, that looks really complicated. That looks seriously complicated. And why? The basic concept of a file manager has been pretty much set in stone. There's no reason to go and screw it up so badly just for the sake of change. And again, no doubt you'll get the same thing. Oh, you stick with Windows because you know where you are with Windows. You don't have to retrain. Well, yeah. People are going to get lost with that. How can I disable this? Because this is terrible.
No, it's a fair point. I'm sorry, Roy.
I was just going to ask, are the screenshots actually said to have been leaked? Is this the word?
I can pull up. I can get a link for the show notes.
What was it leaked by? The last time we saw a leaked thing for Microsoft was for Microsoft Russia. So Microsoft leaks its own stuff. And the reason they do that is to just create some allure or something, having people actually very curious, like this is something they're not supposed to see, or none of your friends are seeing that because this is really forbidden stuff. If they still do that, and I know Apple's been doing this type of stuff for a while, that's just kind of, in my opinion, that's just a sign of misery. I mean, I don't think any of the Linux distros do anything like leaks or, well, they don't have to because they develop this openly, or it's supposed to do this type of stuff openly. But the thing is, I mean, even in this case, what do they offer underneath the hood? Or is it just, I'm not, because I'll tell you the truth, I do read Microsoft News and read technical things too, but I haven't come across a single thing that's a major improvement. It was the same thing when Windows 7 was announced. When Vista was being developed, they did talk about WinFS and, we're going to redo this and redo that and improve things. But afterwards, it's just that they'll just speak in very vague kind of, they say it'll be better, it will be a better experience, but there isn't much being said about features or about a new file system. They probably do they still use NTFS? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, for 8, yeah.
Yeah, Windows 7 is certainly NTFS, but
one of the things
about 8.
One of the things they do though is that they'll just call it NTFS, but the thing is there's NTFS 4, which is an XP, and then there's NTFS 5, which I think's on Vista and on 7. So who knows? It might be NTFS 6 now with new defragmentation errors.
Number 6 usually corresponds though to Vista, and 6.1 is 7 for internal reasons. But I'm not sure they keep these things in sync. But apart from screenshots, and they probably try to appeal to people who just look at pictures because they don't know anything else. Why should a person move to it? I'm just seriously asking. I don't really know much about it.
I think sorry, I'm just going to quickly say all of the comments, or not all of them, but most of the comments underneath the leaked thing that I saw, they all said it was all these screenshots of Windows Explorer, the file manager, and how it was done with all ribbons and lots of screenshots of different things about the ribbon. And most of the comments, bar a couple, were all saying, oh my god, how can that possibly work as something to work with files and with images and things like that? It works for text-based things. You can kind of get used to it. So, in other words, it's fine in something like Office, you can get used to it. But as a file manager, oh my god, what are you smoking? Seriously, what are you smoking? And that's Windows fans.
It seems like the whole thing with ribbons now is a case of trying to sprinkle some like pixie dust or something on all the applications. And what they do now with Windows 7 and then Windows 8, they basically finish the unfinished work. So let's say they intended to take all the applications from Solitaire and things like that and replace the GUI with something that's reasonably well tested. But they haven't finished the job, so now they have to go through every single pertinent application and screw all of them up, and then test them and make sure it's not completely broken. And now they basically manage to go between applications, and these are very arcane applications too. I mean, I'm not sure about you, but I don't use the file managers as much as I used to because most of my content, my writings, my correspondence, my things, they're not in the file manager stuff, in things like email or things like online. When I blog, I'm using a database somewhere on a server somewhere, so just using something that's a storage system that's based on a database. So essentially, it's kind of like WinFS or something. And when you look at something like Fedora, you say to people, you should upgrade to the latest Fedora, and they ask why. And you say, well, because they've got better FS, they've got X4, they've got the new version of KDE that's more brushed up, and they fixed a few things, and you can actually quantify and you can explain things like that. But I'm genuinely asking, and I could ask just about, I suppose I could ask people like Da Costa or all kinds of crazy Microsoft fans, why should I move to this thing? And I want to see the people who know Windows and are actually fans of Windows explaining to me or to anyone why should they move to it? And I don't really know.
I mean, if we cast our mind back to when 7 was brand spanking new, I think one of the questions I asked on my site quite often was, putting aside Linux for a second, let's forget about any other alternative to Windows, and let's just ask the question, except via what can Windows 7 do, and it was Windows 7 in this particular case. What can Windows 7 do that XP can't, either natively or via third-party applications? And there was never an answer.
Yeah, well, it comes with most computers, so that's something it can do. It can bundle itself onto lots of